different from the car optimization or law firm or CPA firm, anything related to customization, different to these industries. We also see a lot of industries with mass production of a lot of products with the same quality, went through the same characteristics and went through the same procedure. And for those, you don't have to necessarily distinguish, right? So for example, Toyota Camry, let's say Camry, somebody up north want a Camry, somebody in Texas want a Camry too, and other countries. All the Camrys are basically the same unless some customers add certain parts. But we know that the dealers just and manufacturer just added those either with no option or a few limited options for everybody. So technically speaking, all those automobiles went to the same brand, same land, went to the same procedure of processing. Same can be said for the pencils, same can be said for the eggs. In the ranch, chickens lay eggs, and they might be different on how the chickens are fed and what's the size of the eggs. Those are processed in a similar manner. Some people feed the chicken, feed the hen, and collect these stuff. So here, let's take a look at this kind of business. I'm sure you've seen something like this before. Maybe not really, have not really thought about it, but we must have seen those things before. So what we do see here, it looks more like a junkyard with a lot of scrap metals, right? And the people, there's actually people living on this business. They turn scrap metals into different things that can be used for industry purpose and others. So this is scrap metal. To turn scrap metal into other uses, first it has to go through a process called melting. Basically what it does is to melt scrap metals of the same material into liquid. Then after melting, it's called skimming. What it does is for those liquidized scrap metal, they have to go through certain procedures. So the other ingredients, which will degrade the metal, will be teased out. So all the metals, no matter what size they are, no matter how thick they need to be, how big they need to be, they went through the similar process. And then after skimming, we went through something called molding. Basically, they put those melted scrap metal, liquidized metal into different shapes so they can be turned into whatever the final product should like. And here, in this case, those scrap metal actually essentially after when going through so many processes were successfully turned into metal sheets. So if we think about it, no matter clients how thick they want the metal sheets to be, how wide, how long they want the metal sheets to be, all the metals before the cutting, they went through similar procedures, or at least all the metals of the metal sheets of the similar thickness, of the similar material requirements, purity requirements, they went through very, very similar processes. So for those, if we think about it, each job, somebody over there might order 1,000 sheets, another guy may want 5,000 sheets, and somebody wanted 10,000. Each job, although they belong to different customers, but all the processing are essentially the same, very identical, at least to say. So what we can do is it's improper to do what we used to do in job order costing that treat each job differently. In this case, all the jobs went through the same procedure, different stages. So what we call them process costing. For process costing, it can be done like this, right? So if we are talking about making scrap metal, in the case we just talked to, they have to be melted first. And until they are melted, they cannot be skimmed. Until they are skimmed, they cannot be molded. So we call this sequential processing because one processing department have to come before or after the other department. In this case, A, B, then turn to complete the goods. So there's no way for you to process it. You have to follow the order. On the other hand, we might follow something else called parallel processing. And what's parallel processing? For example, if we want to make this pen here, this pen itself without the cap, and this cap, it doesn't matter if they are made at the same time or one was made before the other. By the end of the day, as long as you have one cap and one pen, you put them together, that's a complete pen you can sell to other people. So that's called a parallel costing, which is basically those two components. One don't have to be made ahead of the other. In this case, when raw material starts, right, we might have WIP in different stage. For example, after it's been, if you look at the sequential processing, like this one, when the material went through department A, it's turned into first stage, let's say WIPA. So some cost has been incurred already. Then it leaves, when department A's job is done, it leaves department A and instantaneously goes to department B, and more costs, in addition to whatever came out of department A, and more costs, labor, material, and some more maybe overhead will be put to make this product more complete, and we can call it WIPB. Then after WIPB, it's gonna be finished. So this is one different from the job order costing, is in those sequential, in process costing, we do have to consider those different stages of product. So imagine you are someone in charge of the manufacturing process, and your factory does something like sequential costing stuff like this. And if there's somebody asking you, your boss asks you, hey, buddy, how ready are our inventory status? What is our inventory status? I know we have some finished goods. I know we have raw material. I'm fine with that. But can you tell me how far away our WIP is from completion? Then how are you gonna answer that? Are you gonna say, you know, some about half stuck in department A, some finished stuck in department B, and that's all we have? That's a very inaccurate answer, because for your boss, there's no way for him to know when he's asking how far away are we from completion. He was asking how much money do we have to invest, how much cost does it have to be incurred to transform all the existing WIPs, no matter department A or department B, transform all the WIPs into finished goods. So if you can give him a final answer, which allows him to instantaneously know, with the knowledge of the complete cost of units, that how much more costs are expected, I think that type of answer will be really appreciated. This comes to another concept called equivalent units of production. What is equivalent units of production? So for example, if we have a knowledge of some finished goods that needs total cost, I mean material, labor, and overhead added together, needs $100 input. And now one of your products is stuck in department A, WIPA, and it is $20 has been invested already. So using equivalent unit production method, this inventory, this WIP can be viewed as 20% done. 20% equivalent to 20% of complete units. Or for example, you have some WIP stuck in department B, which is 95% down, almost finished, 95% down, so it's still WIP. And if you tell your boss, hey, you know what, this unit is 95%, it's equivalent to 0.95 of a completed unit, then your boss will instantaneously know that, okay, if the complete unit, the cost is 100, means that we only have to put $5 more. The answer will be more appreciated, because the boss don't need to think about, hey, stuck there, how much do we need, or whatever stuff. It's a very precise, concise, and appreciated answer. And this is also because for managerial purposes, equivalent units production also allows us to know how much resource we have to put to convert existing WIPs to finished goods. So this is really important, not only for the information perspective for your boss, but for yourself to understand the cost, to make plans. You need this knowledge. Right, so this is really simple. Let's take a look at a few examples, okay? So first, Trucks Metal Incorporate manufactures products that pass through 3 departments: melting, skimming, and molding. In August, the company produces 1,200 units with the following costs: direct material, $1,600 for melting, direct labor, $250, overhead, $800. Then for skimming, it started with incurred, right? They added 2,200, 220 of the labor, and 900 overhead, and we have molding 1,200, 400, 600. So the question is, which of the following is the journal entry to transfer costs from the skimming department to the molding department? assume there's no beginning or ending work in process of each department. So let's talk about it in detail. Like I always suggested, if you are practicing, there's no reason to just stop when you figure out the answer. And I think it's better for you to practice as if you are asking yourself, from the information we have so far, or give the complete information provided in the question, what can we get? I hope this is big enough for you. So to start, let's just put all the information down and think about what it means. Melting, skimming, and molding. This is for August. And then you have DM, direct material. Direct material for melting, 1600. For skimming, 2200. I think I put too many zeros here. And for molding, 1200. And then we have direct labor, 250. So it's not quite labor intensive. 400. And for overheads, we have 800 for melting, 900 for skimming, and 600 for molding. Which of the following is a journal entry to transfer costs from the skimming department to the melting department, assuming there's no beginning or ending working process in each department, which is understandable. I mean, there's no way, if you are melting metal, there's no way for you to say, okay, it's 5 p.m., I need to go, let's just shut the machine down. Then the melting metal will, I think, will be metal, solid piece of metal again, and all the work wasted. In this kind of business, I think there should be no WIP in each department, because you leave anything down, it's going to cool off and become solid again. You know, it's interesting, I think, to just know this. And we know that in August, the company produced 1,200 units with the following costs. Produced. So meaning that they finished these already. And let's think about what it means. So melting seems to be the first department. Melting seems to be the first department. So we know that, okay, beginning, there's nothing. So direct material was 1,600 used. And also, whenever the direct material is used, no matter how little it is, we said it becomes WIP for the melting department, because when it kicks in, right? And also because there's no ending balance, meaning that anything started in melting, it has to be completed, finished. So we know that whatever started in each department must be all completed and ready for the next department, meaning that go into the next department. If melting is done, automatically the WIP will be removed from melting and put into skimming. When skimming is done, the moment the skimming is done, the WIP will be removed from skimming and automatically put to molding. And when molding is done, it's going to be finished goods. So let's understand all these. So what we know is, in melting, they put a direct material of 1,600, direct labor of 250, and overhead of 8,000. So we know the total cost for this department that invested in making stuff is 9,800. And some people probably have the issues with no dots. Let's put it there. 9,850. That's how much was done. Oh, my bad. One more zero here. So 2,650. That's how much was done in melting department. How much was finished, because there's no any inventory. Anything has to be finished. So we know that, okay, after it comes out of the melting, the materials for skimming had a 2,650 value already. And on top of that, skimming department put another 2,200 direct material and a 220 direct labor and 900 overhead. So after putting all these, so on top of what is out of melting, skimming department puts another 2,200 direct material 220 of direct labor, and 900 overheads. So whatever will be come out of skimming department ready for molding will have a value of, I think I multiplied some. Now it looks good. We'll have a value of 5,970. And this is how much has been invested, has been put to the inventory, to the WIP. So after the thing comes out finished in skimming department, ready for molding department, the metals, whatever stuff, they had a value of 5,970 already. And then molding department on top of that used the material in the amount of 12 worth 1,200, labor was 400, and overhead was 600 on top, right? So what we have here is, this is what came out of skimming department. Then molding department added another 1,200 of raw material, 400 of labor, and 600 of overheads. But keep in mind, all these things needs to be finished for each period. We don't allow half cup of liquid metal in the pot. When the melting department is done, melting department's balance, WIP, will be lower by 2650, and the skimming department's WIP will be higher, debited by 2650. And then skimming department is done, skimming department's WIP will be lower by 5,970, and this 5,970 will be transferred to molding, and we will debit the WIP of molding by 5,970. And when everything is done, finished goods value we debit will be higher by 8,170, and the molding department WIP balance will be lower by 8,170. So let's make sure all these, and let's take a look. Debit working process of molding for this is obviously wrong. There's no way, oh, it's not wrong. I think A is correct, sorry. This means when skimming department is done, skimming department WIP will be lower by 5,970. That's how much they were done. And it's going to be transferred to molding, because when it's done, automatically it's in the molding department ready to be molded. So we have 5,970 higher debit balance. So this one seems to be correct. And the WIP melting 26, we know it's credit, because when it's done, it's going to be removed from melting department and given to skimming department. So if anything, skimming department should be higher. And we also know that what comes after melting should be skimming rather than molding. So it's obviously wrong. And the debit finished goods, we know finished goods is much higher than that. It's 8,170, so this is wrong. And the debit working process, again, it is wrong. This one is a value of finished goods after molding department finished at everything. Now let's take a look at the second. Managerial enterprise produces premier raspberry jam. Output is measured in pints. Managerial uses weighted average method. During January, Managerial has the following production data. Units in process, January 1st, 60% complete. That's a beginning balance for January of the raspberry jam, which I'm not a big fan of. So 36,000 pints. And units completed and transferred out, meaning that it's going to reduce, it's going to complete it, reduce WIP balance, and put into finished goods, 240,000 pints. Units in process by the end of the month was 40% complete, but there were 35,000 pints. And the working process, beginning of the working process had a value of 54,000. And the cost added during January was 351,000 cost added during January. So let's figure that out, okay? So here, first question, using the weighted average method, this is actually not, how to say it? It's important. You have to know what a moving average, what's weighted average is, but it's not really important here. What it says is basically we treat everything with at the same cost. I mean, if they are raspberry jams, right? What can we do? What can they do? So for question number one, basically the question is asking calculate the equivalent units for January this is not a very clear question. So let's figure out how many equivalent units in January did this company make. So what do we know? In January, let's first figure out, okay? Like I said, we can do a sheet. Which year it is? Okay, this is January 1st. And we know that quantity, cost, percentage. I hope everybody can see it. What I'm trying to make is complete sheet. Ooh, not here. Equivalent units of production. So let's put information we can collect here. So quantity-wise, on January 1st, there were 36,000, and which is about a 60% down. Oh, sorry, 60% down is here. And which was worth 54,000. And when the whole January, cost added, we know it was, we don't know how much it is, and we don't know whatever it is. But what we know is it's the cost added was 351,000. And then what is January subtracted? We are talking about WIP here. So when we talk about subtracted and removed from WIP, we are talking about those finished, right? And this is we know. And January finished, we know that it's completed and transferred out. So we have 240,000. And they cost how much? I don't think we knew it yet, right? And we have 100% down. And then we have January, oh, what is going on here? And then we have January 31st, which is the last day. So January 31st, we know there were 54,000, oh no, sorry. There were 75. There were 75,000. And they're about 40% down. So it's interesting, you know, we have the beginning balance of cost. We have the beginning balance of cost, which is 54,000. And we have the monetary value. We have the beginning balance of the WIP, which is 54,000. And we know that it's added 351,000. So let's have a clear amount here. But for the ends, ending WIP, and for how much was transferred out, we have no clue at all how much they are. But we have something we know, right? Because what we just talked about, beginning balance, which is January 1st balance, plus ingredients costs added, which is 351,000, equal subtract completed equals to ending balance of WIP, which means beginning balance plus cost added equals to units finished by the end of the month, during the month, and the ending balance of WIP. So we know, what we know is the January, I'll put it over here. So what we know is by the end of the month, the WIP, the value of WIP and the finished completed goods during January should add up to 405,000. And as long as we have an idea of how many units we are talking about, then we know the equivalent units, right? We know how much will be cost. We see that, we know how much each unit costs. And we know the cost of goods sold and everything, cost of goods manufactured and not sold. So here we can talk about equivalent units. And we know January, there were 250,000 units. Which are 100% done, right? So we multiply this with 100%, it doesn't change. And we also know that 400, the ending balance of WIP is 75,000 is equivalent to, oops, sorry about that. There were 75,000 paints of WIP and each on average is 40% done. So they were equivalent to about 30,000 of finished goods. So totally, number-wise, we have corresponding, what is that doing here? So corresponding to this 405 cost, total cost of the inventory finished during January, and the ending balance of WIP, the equivalent units is 270,000. So we know that equivalent units of production, they produce about 270,000 units. And question number 2 asks us for the unit cost for January. So that's easy. We have 405,000 cost incurred, and the 405,000 represents equivalently 270,000 units of product. So we know that each unit, the per cost is $1.50. And assign cost to transfer it out to an equivalent ending WIP. So we know each unit its cost is like, so we know each unit costs $1.50, right? So for the inventory transferred out, we know it's 240,000 unit paints completed, and each paint is $1.50. So we have $360 here for the units finished, cost of goods sold, so cost of goods transferred out, completed. And for ending WIP, we know we have equivalently, we have 30,000 paints. And each complete paint costs $1.50. What am I doing here? Costs $1.50. So the ending inventory value is 45,000, and you will see that if you're the beginning and the cost added, it add up to, we showed this already, actually 405,000, and the ending and the completed units add up to 405,000 as well. So, okay, that's the end of process costing, and we really need to think about how things work, the cost flow, the video I just presented to you, and also the equivalent units of production method.